Islam and the Discoveries of Modern Science Part 9. Implications of the relationship between Islamic injunctions and modern scientific discoveries. Islam brought with it wise injunctions containing all that is good and beneficial for the whole of mankind, including that which Allah, glorified and exalted, commanded us with as well as that which He prohibited us from, hence stabilizing mankind's life from every angle. Some examples of Islamic injunctions related to the commandments of Allah, glorified and exalted. 1. The ritual of prostration to Allah. Allah commanded His believing slaves, Muslims, to fulfill the obligatory ritual of prayer, after purifying themselves, 5 times in every day, including the pillar of prostration to Allah. In it, the Muslim places his forehead on the ground, submitting and humbling himself before his God and Creator, glorifying His praises and supplicating for the good of both this world and the hereafter. Allah, glorified and exalted, has promised to answer the supplications of the truthful, sincere, believing slaves. Grant that they fulfill 3 conditions for a prayer to be answered, that the Prophet Muhammad, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, informed of. That his food, drink and clothing be from lawful earnings, and so on and so forth. Modern science has discovered that the Islamic injunction of Muslims prostration to Allah, by placing their foreheads on the ground, actually discharges extra electric shocks in the human body that are harmful to it. The human body is to some extent burdened with the requisite electrical shocks. By touching his forehead to the ground for some time, at different times throughout the day, these extra electrical shocks are redischarged into the surface of the earth, which contains negative shocks. Therefore, this act is a protection for the human from many physical and psychological ailments that occur due to the negative effects of these extra electrical shocks on the body that must be discharged in order to protect it. Perhaps we have noticed the phenomenon of the delivery trucks that transport highly flammable petrol, in that there is an iron chain that trails behind it in order to discharge extra electrical shocks by touching the ground. Due to their movement across long distances in high temperatures, it is very likely that the petrol in these trucks could become ignited by these extra electric shocks. So how wise are Islamic injunctions, which include divine commandments for the benefit of the whole of mankind? Some examples of Islamic injunctions related to the prohibitions of Allah, glorified and exalted. 1. The prohibition of consuming the flesh of animals with fangs, like lion, tigers, etc., as well as birds with talons, like eagles, vultures, etc. 2. The prohibition of consuming the flesh of dead animals and birds that have not been slaughtered according to Islamic injunctions. 3. The prohibition of consuming the flesh of swine. 4. The prohibition of drinking wine and intoxicants. And, as is well known, Allah, blessed and exalted, did not send His Prophet Muhammad with anything except that it is good and beneficial for the whole of mankind without exceptions. As He says concerning the seal of His prophets and messengers, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, He allows them as lawful all that is good and beneficial, and prohibits them as unlawful all that is evil and harmful. Qur'an, Al-Araf, 157. Modern science has discovered 1. That the human being assumes some of the characteristics of the animals it eats, since their flesh contains secretions that run through the blood while eating it, having a negative effect on the behavior of the one consuming it. It was established that at the moment predatory animals are about to hunt their prey, their bodies release hormones that aid them in hunting and killing their prey, and that the bodies of these animals release these hormones while eating them, even if the prey was presented to them ready to eat without having to hunt it. This is evident from the nervous, enraged actions witnessed in such animals, lions, tigers, while tearing into the meat presented to them for eating, without having hunted it. Not to mention the picture of rage painted on their faces at that time. Hence, the person who consumes the flesh of these types of wild, predatory animals is afflicted with a change in nature, becoming more vicious and given to violence and aggressions. Hence, the wisdom of Islam's prohibition of eating the flesh of animals with fangs, like lions and tigers, as well as birds with talons, like eagles and vultures. 2. The flesh of dead animals carries disease-causing bacteria to the body of the one consuming it. In the case of illness being the cause of death, the illness moves to the body of a person simply by eating it. The retention of blood in the veins and tissues of a dead animal facilitates the spread of disease-causing bacteria within its flesh, hence, moving to the body of the person eating it. And this is the wisdom of Islam's prohibition of consuming the flesh of dead animals before being slaughtered in a way legislated by Islamic laws so that the blood can exit from the body and not be retained in the veins, leading to the spread of disease. 3. The flesh of swine is full of diseases and moves disease-causing bacteria to the one consuming it, like swine blisters, tapeworms, liverworms, etc. The reason being that the pig by nature is a rotten foul animal that eats corpses, garbage, and even its own excreted waste. This is the way it was made and a part of its nature, therefore it is impossible to suppress these behaviors. The pig is originally a wild animal. It was humans, non-Muslims, who domesticated it, whose role is to clean the environment from corpses and garbage, just like the role of certain insects. Hence, the pig body is considered a diseases storehouse. Additionally, biologists have placed humans with carnivores and herbivores, and have classified the pig into the category of carnivores and herbivores as well, such that it eats both plants and animals, like mice. In this way it is the same manner of nutrition of humans. Hence, the cycle of disease matures between the human and the pig, but not between the advancement of the human race in the different sciences and its elevation in every aspect of life. From this it should be clear to every person of sound intellect that the sound Islamic injunctions that came as a protection for mankind from different diseases by prohibiting the foods and drinks that cause them, and to preserve the intellect that paves the way for knowledge and enlightenment, are a true testament to the veracity of the prophecy and message of Muhammad. Salutations and peace of Allah be upon him. What we've touched upon above was a concise model to illustrate a little of what the great many Islamic injunctions comprise of sublime wisdom and magnificent benefits through its commandments and prohibitions by which all human life is protected. How wise then are the Islamic injunctions, and what they comprise of divine, sound and wise prohibitions, containing all that is good and beneficial for all of humankind. A brief summary of examples of the testaments and indications of the prophecy and message of Prophet Muhammad, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him. 1. The creed which Prophet Muhammad, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, brought and invited to. Prophet Muhammad came inviting to a pure and unadulterated set of beliefs, free from any flaws or defects, a set of beliefs accepted by the intact pure human nature and sound intellect. A creed which invites to a belief in a creator of this universe, and he is Allah, the magnificent creator. B. Belief in the oneness of God, the magnificent creator of this universe, the one and only, who did not beget nor was he begotten, and to whom there is none similar, equal or equivalent. C. Belief in the magnificence and beauty of God, the creator's attributes, glorified and exalted, and that all of his attributes are beautiful. The epitome of perfection with respect to Allah exalted, such as the complete perfection of his wisdom, his unrestrained ability and power, and the scope of his knowledge. D. Belief that Allah, glorified and exalted, is the most just, who oppresses not even an atom, and that he is the acceptor of repentance, the merciful, who accepts the repentance of his slaves when they turn to him in repentance, merciful to them when they return to him and abide by his commands and abstain from his prohibitions. E. Exaltation of Allah, glorified and exalted, from the ugly, blameworthy traits that do not befit him, which were attributed to him by numerous people due to their ignorance and lack of esteem and glorification of him, glorified and exalted. F. Exaltation of Allah, glorified and exalted, from those blameworthy traits that have been attributed to him, such as taking a wife or son, and that he is high above taking a wife or son, or having a likeness, equal or equivalent in his godly attributes. G. Belief in the prophets and messengers of Allah, exalted, revering them and esteeming them, without raising any of them to the level and status of a deity. Indeed, at a time where the Jews were attributing immorality to Miriam, the mother of Jesus Christ, thereby denigrating Jesus Christ the son of Miriam, saying that he was conceived from fornication, as well as belying his message, and at the same time, the Christians claimed that Jesus Christ the son of Miriam was a god, taking him as their god to be worshipped, in spite of his being a human being, who ate, drank, slept and did just as all other humans do, like urination and defecation, and other things which indicate and confirm his humanness. We find that Prophet Muhammad is he who brought a moderate set of beliefs, accepted by pure, unadulterated human nature and sound intellect, without neglecting the Jews, such that the creed he brought purified and exonerated Miriam, the mother of Jesus Christ, from that which they attributed to her, nullifying the futile claims that the Jews made against Jesus Christ the son of Miriam, and without neglecting the Christians, such that the creed he brought stated the oneness of Allah, glorified and exalted, and that Jesus Christ the son of Miriam possessed no single godly trait, and that he was a human like all other humans, but that he received revelation from Allah, exalted, just as all the other prophets and messengers. Hence, Jesus Christ the son of Miriam is an honorable messenger sent by Allah, exalted. H. Rejection of all that is worshipped besides Allah, glorified and exalted, from human beings, stones or idols, etc. A rejection of all acts of worship directed towards other than Allah, glorified and exalted, whether those acts of worship are for a human, rock or tree, etc. Such different representations of acts of worship are common and united in worshipping other than Allah, exalted. Some examples of that are, how the Christians worship a human being, their worship of Jesus Christ the son of Miriam, and the Arabs used to worship stones and idols, before the coming of Prophet Muhammad, etc. J. Sincerely directing all worship to Allah alone, glorified and exalted, and not associating other than him in it. Indeed, Prophet Muhammad, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, brought a pure and unadulterated creed, which on behalf of it he encountered the most severe hostility and persecution from all, yet patiently anticipating that Allah, glorified and exalted, would grant him victory over his enemies and persecutors. We wonder, if Prophet Muhammad had not been truthful in his message or a messenger from Allah, glorified and exalted, what compelled him to openly declare his call to monotheism, the pure call accepted by intact human nature and sound intellect, which, on behalf of it he encountered the most severe hostility and persecution, while he was the one whose veracity, trustworthiness, and reasonableness everyone testified to? Without a doubt, this leads us to conclude that Muhammad, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, was indeed truthful in his message, and a messenger from Allah, glorified and exalted. 2. The Prophet Muhammad's honorable character and praiseworthy traits, from amongst them, veracity and trustworthiness, by which he was nicknamed before being sent as a messenger, and he used to be called the veracious, the trustworthy. And his people would entrust him with their possessions. Bashfulness, open-handedness, generosity, asceticism, God-consciousness, decent relations with others, a good friend, honoring others, and so many others of his praiseworthy traits and honorable character, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him. 3. His noble lineage, his was the noblest of Arabic lineage, which is a proof of his being chosen by Allah, exalted, as a seal of his prophets and messengers. Salutations and peace of Allah be upon him. 4. Prophet Muhammad's personification of what he was calling to. Noble character, maintaining the ties of kinship, hastening towards the worship of Allah, glorified and exalted, and his heart being perpetually busy with the remembrance of Allah, exalted. The Prophet Muhammad's aversion to the worldly life and its objects and charms. He was the best example to imitate in terms of asceticism and piety, through which he sought the pleasure of his Lord, blessed and exalted. The polytheists actually attempted to bargain with Prophet Muhammad, by showering him with expensive and valuable possessions and wealth in order to get him to stop his message. However, the Prophet Muhammad could do nothing except refuse the adornments and charms of the worldly life, and chose what was with Allah, exalted, a testament to the veracity and authenticity of his message. If not, then what compelled him to refuse the worldly life and its charms, or to be ascetic and God-conscious? Vi. Prophet Muhammad's compassion for all of creation and his blessing upon all who attach themselves to him for any reason, as a testament of Allah's support for him. 7. Allah's support for Prophet Muhammad, by answering his prayers, in order to be a proof of the truth of his message. Salutations and peace of Allah be upon him. 8. Allah's support for Prophet Muhammad, through perceptible miracles, those supernatural things that could only be performed by a prophet sent and supported by God the Creator, Allah, glorified and exalted, to be a testament to the truth and authenticity of his message. Salutations and peace of Allah be upon him. 9. Allah's protection of the everlasting miracle, the noble Qur'an, for Prophet Muhammad. It is the only divine book whose godly texts and luminous radiance have been protected. Its eloquence, splendor of its meanings, harmony of its expressions and foundations, and loftiness of its objectives and goals are a challenge, to Arabs and non-Arabs, to produce even one chapter, one line, similar to it. Yet, they were incapable and thus failed. And that no one had even the slightest knowledge of. Then modern science came to testify to its accuracy and authenticity, as a proof that the noble Qur'an is but revelation from Allah, glorified and exalted. Allah is safeguarding the Prophet Muhammad. Salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, in spite of the many attempts by the enemies of Islam to harm him or kill him, in support of him and as an aid to him in his message. 11. The spread of Prophet Muhammad's message. Salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, to the various regions of the earth. He received revelation at the age of 40, and he died at the age of 63, meaning, the period of his message was only 23 years, a period equivalent to the reign of many statesmen and leaders. during which he was able to eliminate the roots of polytheism, idols and the worship of other than Allah, exalted, cultivating faith and belief in one God as well as firmly implanting the pure, unadulterated worship of Allah alone without partner, in the hearts. In addition to rooting out all the corrupt customs of the Arabian Peninsula, as a testament that Allah was fully supporting him and his message, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him. 12. The Prophet's commendable condition and graceful manner of speaking, for example. He, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, was continually pensive, mostly silent and only spoke when the need arose, soft-natured. Never became angry for the sake of himself, such that his anger was for the sake of Allah when his sanctities were violated. He laughed by smiling. He used to joke and play around with his companions, he never spoke except the truth, and so forth from the commendable descriptions of Prophet Muhammad's manner of speaking. Serving as a testament to Muhammad's, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, being chosen by Allah, glorified, and exalted, as the seal of his prophets and messengers. 13. The perfect qualities of Prophet Muhammad's appearance, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, for example. He had a radiant complexion, was fair-skinned with a tint of redness, his face was round like the full moonlit night, his eyes were naturally black, meaning, when you saw him and looked at him you would say his eyes were black due to their natural beauty, not due to the use of antimony. His eyes were wide with long slits between them, he had long eyelashes that only added to the beauty of his eyes, he had delicate eyebrows that did not connect, a wide forehead, a high nose, the most beautiful lips of any person, a gap in his front teeth, and when he spoke his was as if light emanated from between them. When he was happy his face would light up as if it were a piece of the moon, he had black hair between neither straight nor curly, his neck was as pure as silver. He was black-bearded with a small number of grey hairs. After aging, he was solid-bodied, neither bulky nor thin, neither tall nor short, but closer to tall. His chest and belly at an even level with each other, he was broad-minded, never becoming angry for his own sake, rather his anger was for the sake of Allah, glorified, and exalted, absolute light. When any part of his body became exposed, such as his shoulders during Hajj or Umrah, it was like pure light due to its beauty and radiance, and so much more from the beautiful physical description of Prophet Muhammad, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him, serving as witness to Muhammad's being chosen by Allah as the seal of his prophets and messengers, and what an excellent choice. And so much more than what we've touched upon as testaments and indications of the prophecy and message of Prophet Muhammad, salutations and peace of Allah be upon him,